Okay, I've gotten quite a lot of questions about racism in Brazil. Obviously, I'm black, so I have my experiences, but this is not something that I focus on too much. To be honest, whenever I travel, I just travel. I just go places I want to go because I like to travel. I never really looked up places that are black friendly or whatever. This is just not something I do. This is not in my mentality because I'm just going with an open mind. Like, I'm just going. I was never the type to also listen to other people's experiences, and I was never the type to not go to a place because other people had bad experiences. People say things about Spain. For Italy, I've lived in Spain for 5 years and I had the best experience ever. And I grew up in Germany, so I know what racism is. I listen to the experiences, but I'm not the type to take those experiences onto me and be like, oh, I need to be cautious when I go to this place. I've been in China and I've been welcomed so much, and there are people who just don't have that experience. I'm not saying that their experience is not valid, but my experience is also valid for me. So I keep myself kind of like in that mentality. I'm open wherever I travel to. Back to the point, Brazil. I get that question a lot, like I said, and Brazil is very particular. Not only Brazil, but Latin America as a whole, because the thing in Brazil is that when you're Brazilian and black, you will not go through the same things as when you're black and European or American. They see you kind of like as a higher standard. As sad as it is, my Brazilian black friends definitely don't have the same experiences I have. I'm always very welcomed. Despite that, I've had a couple of experiences in Brazil where I was going to a mall, I was in random stores, and people would just not greet me. They would just look at me in a way like, what is she doing in here? And I guess in Brazil, because in Brazil the inequality is so huge that people just mistake you for a Brazilian, a black Brazilian, and unfortunately black Brazilians are on the lower ends of the economy. It's sad, but that's just the reality of it. I was with my mom at Copacabana and she was asking, where are the black Brazilians? Because you barely see them. You will see black Brazilians, but the ones you will see are the ones who are the cleaners, the nannies, and and even in their telenovelas, on their TV, the black people you see will mostly be the gardener, the cook, the cleaner, the nanny, all of those stereotypes. Kind of, and that's portrayed in the Brazilian society, because that's up to now they still have that ingrained in their society. The only successful black people you see are either musicians or mostly musicians, to be honest. I've met one black lawyer and he said he was the only black family in his whole building and his area where he was living at, because it was a nicer area, and that's so sad. And when you go to Rio, you'll see most black people that live in the outskirts, either in the favelas or they live in the outskirts, but not at Copacabana, Ipanema, like the richer areas. You will mostly see white people there. So when you go as a black person and they see that you're a tourist, for them it's like they almost forget like you're black. For them it's just like, oh, you're from abroad, so you are different. You're not like the black Brazilians for them because you're from abroad. So anyone who's from abroad, to them, that's so nice. They think you have money. You're treated differently. I have one story time that I actually told in Portuguese. When I went to that mall, I entered that store. Everyone was looking at me, wasn't really attending me. But when I went up to them and asked them for something, they noticed my accent and asked me where I was from. I was like, at the time I was living in Paris. I was like, I'm from France. I live in Paris. And they're like, wow, que chique. I'm just like, wow, that's so bougie, so fancy. And all of the girls who were working there all of a sudden came up to me and wanted to talk to me. And before, they would just stare at me and not attend me, not do anything. But the minute they knew that I was from abroad, I was from Paris, they were like, oh wow, okay, then she's different. She's not like a black Brazilian who is like poor. These kind of stereotypes, and my black Brazilian friends tell me that their day to day, they don't go to certain malls, they don't go to certain places because they know the way they will be treated there is not how they're supposed to be treated. And if I go, they see by the way I'm dressed usually, and when I speak, that I'm not from there. So they will treat me differently. That's the thing about racism in Brazil. There's racism, but there's also classism, which is very, very different to other countries where there's mainly racism, because in Europe, everyone can afford the same things. In the States, usually it's a kind of like a society where everyone is equal. The middle class is higher. There's no big gap between poor and rich. And in Brazil, there is a huge gap. So that's the thing in Brazil. Classism is huge in Brazil.
Good morning, good afternoon, Africans. I hope you're doing fine where you are, and if you're not doing fine, please do fine where you are. Yeah, let's talk about Merry Christmas, by the way. Let's talk about racism. Racism in Brazil, racism in the Latin America, you know. Specifically, today we are talking about the country of Brazil. We know that Brazil has a lot of black people. Brazil have a lot of people who are mixed. A mixed person is different from a colored person. A mixed person is somebody who is having a lot of mixed traces in their bloodline. While a colored person is somebody who has two, like Barack Obama is a colored person. A mixed person, we find mixed people mostly in countries like South Africa. Also, we have some coloreds over there. Well, that's not the point. The point is this: Brazilians are racist towards one another. Brazilians are classicists towards one another. Brazilians are colorists towards one another. I'm not saying, and I'm not trying to paint Brazil in any way bad whatsoever, but we have sisters who've gone there. They are sharing their opinion of how the Brazilians treated them. And you know, one thing people forget is that people always remember. We have memories and we store information in our heads. This information is able to help us remember things and work on things. You understand? Now, for a country like Brazil, a country where people are black, majority of people are black or mixed, I do expect some form of respect towards people of dark skin color. I do expect some form of modernity, because Brazil is not a small country, it's a big country. Football legends are found in Brazil, you see? And now, what is happening right now between Brazilians and the black visitors who are walking over there is something very unpleasing, you know? A sister went over there and she was able to explain how she was treated by the Brazilians. One thing I noted is that we have classism, we have colorism, and we have racism. These are three different things, but they have a very thin line that separates them. Colorism is a dilute form of racism. Yes, colorism is a dilute form of racism. While classism does not look at color. Classism does not look at race. Classism looks at you are valued based on the value of your pocket. If you have cash, you'll get better treatment. Classism is where a visitor is treated better than a local, regardless of their skin color. Yes. Let's watch what the sister has to say, and then I shall get back by the end of the video, where we shall have a deep further discussions and a deep critical analysis. Let's dive in.
So I've gotten this question before since I travel a lot to Brazil. And one thing I can tell you for sure, that I, as a foreigner and black foreigner, am treated better than a black Brazilian. I see it with my friends. I've personally made experiences where whenever they see that I'm from abroad, they treat me better than my Brazilian friends who are also black. So it's not so much a question of colorism in Brazil, but more so a question of classism. The minute they know that you're from abroad, they don't really care about your skin color. What they care more about is that you have money. And generally there's this perception that people who are from abroad, usually Europe, Europe or the States have money. So they will automatically cater to you more. They will treat you better than Black Brazilians. Because still to this day in Brazil, the economic disparity between Black Brazilians and white Brazilians is just huge. There's a huge gap. If you go to a shopping mall, to a mid to high end store, you will only see white people there. You will not see Black people. In so many spaces, you just don't see Black people. If you go to a nice restaurant, you will see one or two in the whole restaurant, or a lot of times you won't even see Black people. When I go there, I move around in different spaces, and I would usually go to the places I would go to here in Europe, which are normal, like going to a nice restaurant, going to a high-end store. And when they see me, they usually assume that I'm not from there, because to them, a Black Brazilian can't afford to be in those spaces. Unfortunately, my Black Brazilian friends tell me that they usually don't move around those spaces because of exactly that. Like, it always comes with some kind of prejudice, racism. That's why a lot of them don't move in those spaces. And because also economically, they just can't afford to go to those restaurants. Because like I said, economically, unfortunately, like the Black people in Brazil are on the lowest ends. So it's rare to see Black people in a lot of spaces. And that's very unfortunate. I've had experiences both way around. I've had experiences where they thought I was Brazilian, so they didn't really treat me accurately because they thought I was a Black Brazilian. I went to the store one time and nobody attended me. They looked at me weird, like, what is she doing in here? It was a mid to high end clothing store. So they were just like, okay, what is she doing here? I could see it in their looks, like nobody attended me. The minute I went up to one of them to ask for a size, she noticed my accent. She was like, wait, where are you from? And I was like, at the time I was living in Paris, and I was like, I live in Paris. And she's like, oh, Paris, que chique. Like, how bougie. And then she started calling all of her colleagues to come and talk to me. Whereas not even 5 minutes before, they literally just ignored me. Another example, but the other way around, I was at this also mall, like high-end mall in the rich neighborhood, which is Leblon in Rio. It's the richest neighborhood in all of Brazil. And just checking out some perfumes in this store. And then these two older ladies look at me, but it wasn't weird. They were actually like friendly, smile, and they came up to me asking me where I was from. So I told them I live in France. The minute I tell them I live in France, they're like, oh, we knew it. We knew you were not from here. The way you move so elegantly, the way you're dressed, we just knew it. You're not from here. And that goes to show exactly their perception, because they saw me being well dressed and elegant, how they said, they instantly knew and assumed that I couldn't be Brazilian, because in their perception, a Black Brazilian can't look like me. They would ask themselves, like, where does she get the money from to even be in this space and shop here? So that's what I'm saying. They treat me better because they see that I'm not from there. And that's a difference to Europe or the States, where colorism is more of a thing in Brazil also, but it is much more classism than actual colorism.
Yeah, classism, racism, and colorism. These are problems that are really affecting Black people. Yes, it's affecting us in such a way that it is being done to us, and it's affecting us in such a way that we are busy doing it to some other people as well. That is what happens here. Colorism is when we give priority to our light-skinned ladies more than our dark-skinned ladies. But in Africa, what's the majority? The majority is dark-skinned ladies. You understand? Now, my advice to Black people who travel is this. If you're traveling to a country, please do your research. Understand how your people are treated over there. Understand how the society works over there. Don't just go there with your mind expecting, okay, I'm going there, I'm going to be liked, I'm going to be this and that. Have some self-awareness before you go. You understand? If I want to leave Kenya right now and I go all the way to USA, I already know some things about USA. I need to do some research about some states. If there's a state that I'm going to visit, I need to do some research in how and their history with Black people and their history with African people, people of color. I don't just take myself there. For Brazil, it's a country that is rooted in deep African values. Those people who have in Brazil are people from Angola and people from Guinea. Those Africans. Now we have they were colonized by the Spanish and the Portugal. Portuguese is the one which colonized Brazil, and so the language they speak is Portuguese. I will try and learn about this as well, you know, so that when you get to a place, you easily conform, you easily adapt, you easily blend in. You don't become a stranger. You see, you don't become someone who is easily noticed by people around, you know. And there are things you can't change. You can't change a racist mind. You can really not change that. And that person who is enjoying the privileges of classism, know that there comes a time when the tables are turned. It's now you who is facing the dangers of classism. That is how it goes, and that is how it happens. You understand? Yeah. I got nothing much to say about that, but to educate you on when you're traveling, know where you're going. When you are walking around, understand people, try to blend in. This will ease a lot of frustrations when you move around. Yeah. See you in the next one, guys. These EFK original documentaries. Like watching you. If you like watching me, kindly subscribe. Yeah. See you in the next one, and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.